Hey everyone, this is Josh back with Cardboard Chronicles. In this episode, I'm interviewing Ryan, aka CardCollector2. Ryan has probably the biggest following in all of Instagram as it pertains to sports cards. So he's got a really great channel. Check it out. Really awesome content. He's a great ambassador for the hobby. He also hosts Trade Night. He's hosted it the last 2 years and most recently in Chicago at the last National. So we're going to talk about Trade Night, how everything went for him. And then he's also recently purchased his own card store, which is really awesome. So we're going to talk about that, a lot of other things, talk about GaryV, what he thinks about the future of the hobby. So a lot to get to. Excited to get this one going. And don't forget to check out howtocollectcards.com, a website I created dedicated to helping collectors of all skill levels build their collections. Feeling like you just don't know where to begin, you don't know what all these different things mean within the hobby, I've created this dictionary and I'm giving it away completely free. It has over 120 terms, all the terms that you need to know to get started collecting cards. We're also offering an advanced training course that is comprised of 17 different parts, everything from learning what cards you should be focused on buying for yourself, what cards are worth, where to buy the cards, when to buy cards to save yourself the most money, how to avoid different mistakes within the hobby that a lot of people make. It's just got everything that you need to be successful collecting cards, so please check that out. We've also got a bunch of new bonus content, and any new content that I create for the training course gets added for free. So if you've bought the course already, you're going to get all that new content, and it's free for life. I'm going to keep adding stuff to it. There's always going to be new content helping everyone. So please check it out. It's really extensive. It's got tons of great information. I think it's going to bring a lot of value to a lot of people. Hey Ryan, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, man. So CardCollector2, here we go. Why don't you just start us off, man? Tell us about yourself and your background in the hobby.
Cool. Yeah, so as of now, I currently own a sports card shop in Grove City, Ohio. It's about 20 minutes south of Columbus. But how I got here, I originally started with like Pokemon cards in like second, third grade. So early 2000s, got into Pokemon cards. Everybody at school had them, but they were quickly banned. Kids were stealing them left and right. So that just, I like the card idea. I like trading cards, I like holding them. So quickly moved into sports cards. And back then it was, Beckett forums, sports card forum, and local shows. So just kind of worked my way up with going to shows, then trading cards online. And just been doing it ever since. About 2013, I got into Instagram. I was just after high school. I'd returned back from college to go to school here in Columbus. I was looking for something to do in my free time, since a lot of the kids I went to high school with kind of went away to school. I was like, I'll just get on social media. I don't do a lot. I never did like a personal Instagram page really. So I was like, I'll post some cards. I was looking for like an alternative to Photo Bucket. Had so many glitches. I'm not even sure if Flickr was around, but I definitely didn't use it. So it's like, I think Instagram could be a good way to display stuff. Then you could share that. You could post it in your bio on Blowout. So it's like, this is a way for you to see my things. It was free. And yeah, over the course of the last 6 years, Instagram and social media and cards has just exploded. And really changed my outlook on like a job or a career in cards. It's something I always wanted to do when I was a kid. I always wanted to own a card store. I worked at one when I was 14. That was kind of like my first job, just kind of like an under the table gig, like working on Saturdays, just helping out. But yeah, when I saw what Instagram could become, just the amount of people you can reach, the amount of people you can connect with, it was crazy. So just kind of did that. Ended up quitting my corporate job right after I got married last October. Just wasn't really happy. If you've seen any of my blogs on my YouTube page, I talk a lot about, or on my Instagram page, I talk a lot about how like I got into GaryV about 3 years ago. I'm very big. I was into GaryV before like he got really big into the card thing. But big on the whole philosophy of the one life, no regrets. I didn't want to I didn't want to get older and, regret not taking a chance. So with Instagram doing well for me, I decided to quit my corporate job and pursue this full time. And then in May, kind of out of the blue, a card shop an owner I'd known for about 15 years, who's been in business in Columbus for about 40, said he was looking to get out of it, gave me a number, and 3 days later I purchased it. So it happened very quickly and very unexpectedly. I talked to some people about it, like we mentioned before it started. The guys at IndyCard Exchange and RBI Crew, kind of talked to them about it as they own shops. And like I said, it's always what I wanted to do. And I just knew that I just kind of figured that if I was going to own one, this was probably the best opportunity I would ever have to own one. Starting a shop from scratch is tough. Just allocations, the way the hobby is right now, getting product, which is, what majority of what sells, is tough. So taking over a shop with allocations for, a long time was a huge factor. So yeah, I ended up buying that May 23rd, closed it for 5 days for a remodel. It was built like your typical 1997 card store, clustered, dirty, very transactional. There was no room to sit. There was no seats. So closed it down for 5 days, had some help from my wife and a good friend, and reopened May 28th. So since May 28th, 6 days a week, I've been at a card store in South Columbus. So
That's great. You basically you kind of pioneered the Instagram thing, you and Jimmy, right? Like, what was it like kind of when it first started? Did you think it would be this big and today? And just where's Instagram taking you?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I love looking back and seeing how different it was. That's what actually got me into Time Hop, because it's cool to see where I was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and see how crazy it is. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I never had any expectation that it was ever going to be what it was. I just, like I said, I used it for taking pictures and sharing my collection. It was easier than Photo Bucket. I just could take a picture, post it, take a picture, post it. And then people were like, hey, is that for trade? And then I was having direct conversations on on Instagram, and it removed the need for Blowout. I've been on Blowout. I was on Blowout for years. The forum thing was huge for me. I have 950 feedback on Blowout. Every day I was on there. But it kind of removed that need for Blowout, because you could just direct message someone on there. And it progressed, and I was like, oh, there's 100 followers. And then it was 1,000. And I was like, holy cow, this could be big. And every day, I was consistent about it. Then when I kind of met Jimmy and got into GaryV similar times, Jimmy was posting, this was before Instagram had got really big, and Jimmy's on there and posting, Anthony Davis 101 rookie logo, man, and LeBron exquisite patch autos, and stuff that most people on Instagram at the time hadn't seen. Because a lot of people I knew and followed didn't have these, $25, $50, $100,000 basketball cards, or cards in general. They weren't on there. It was just your more modern day stuff, or there was cool stuff, just it wasn't big yet. But when I started hanging out with Jimmy, and he would I credit a lot of my success to Jimmy, is when you get posted by an account that was that big, just a lot of people saw it. And that's the thing about Instagram, is when you have that kind of attention, you post something and it gets a lot of views. It reaches a lot of people. So yeah, it was super cool. And then GaryV was talking a lot about hashtags and post quality. So making sure pictures were good. Yeah, just a lot of things ended up happening, and it took off. But you mentioned the connections. It's the people I've met through cards, through Instagram. Like you mentioned, Jimmy, we met through social media, and Jimmy was in my wedding 3.5 years later. I remember meeting him at the National, and we hit it off right away. He's a wonderful human being, one of the best people I've ever met. And we just hit it off, and I've been to his house a couple times and seen his collection in person, and we got really close. And like I said, I got married last October, and he was on the groomsman in my wedding. So it was it's crazy to look back and think that one of the best people in my life I met through a social media app talking about cards. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's the power of cards and social media today. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I love hearing that. So why don't you tell us about trade night? Just give us a little overview for people that don't know what trade night is. Maybe a little history on what it was,
Sure.
and how you've taken it over, and then specifically this year and how it went for you, and then I can give my little opinion on it after.
Sure. So trade night started in Atlantic City in 2015, 2016. This was the fourth one we ran. So 4 years before 2019. So yeah, 2015. And, it happened very, very last minute at that show. Cause Jimmy and I were talking. I actually ended up flying down there to help him like get stuff ready. Cause he's like, I don't know what to take. Ended up flying down there, and we were talking about it, and he's like, I think I want to rent out a room where people from Instagram can come and just hang out, right? I say, I don't want it to, he talks about it in his original video, but it's like, I don't need anything. I'm not looking to sell you anything. I don't need your email. I don't need anything. It's just a place for you to come and hang out and meet the people you interact with on a daily basis. A little different than what we run now. When Jimmy was running, it was 3 nights. It was Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. And he was paying for continuous snacks and continuous drinks. And the first night we ever ran it in Atlantic City, I think 20 people showed up. There's nobody showed up. I remember 30 minutes in, I'm like, man, did we post the right time? There was tons of open. There was probably seating for, it was 400 square feet. There's seating for about 50 people. And no one really showed up. Jimmy had ripped boxes of Immaculate, like football, and was like, I remember him hitting a cool card that somebody wanted and like gave it to the kid for his PC right there. There was a bunch of people gathered around one table, and that was it. And the second night it got more momentum, and then it got it picked up steam pretty quickly. Then he ran it in Chicago the next year, and that was in a much smaller room. Just space is at a premium in Chicago, and it was very small. And I remember there were people sitting on the floor in the hallway. We quickly grew out of that room. But snacks, drinks, it was great. A lot of people showed up. Again, 3 days. It was a blast. And then Jimmy got one of his his dream job. He went to a camp when he was a kid. It's like a YMCA camp in North Carolina, and got like the camp director position. And we had talked, and he mentioned he was just not going to be able to run trade night. And he just kind of asked me to take it over, and just kind of continue it, as I was the one that was like with him from the start, like helping coordinate a little bit of it. But most of what he had, most of it was Jimmy. It was his idea, and he started it. But kind of like I mentioned earlier, with like the attention on Instagram, I was at about 9,000 followers at the time, and I had a couple like silly like companies would hit me up and say, hey, if we send you this, we post a picture of it, right? So I kind of thought in my head, I was like, I bet some of these companies are willing to donate things for this kind of attention, right? You're talking about, I had 9,000 followers at the time. It was one of the bigger accounts then. And I was like, I bet these companies are willing to send us things for this. So I hit up all sorts of companies. I hit up Panini and Upper Deck and Ultra Pro and Brothers in Cards and card shops, Indie Card Exchange, RBI, to hit them all up. And most of them said, yeah, we'll send you something. And all these people, all these companies just sent all these prizes for trade night. And that was my big thing, was Jimmy had made it a room where you could come and hang out. And I wanted to make it an event, right? I wanted to make it where all these people came and you could win free stuff, and we could give back to these people, right? Like, these companies want their brand on this big event. So why not reward the people that are on Instagram and be a part of this awesome community and let them reap the benefits? So got tons of prizes, rented out a little community center in Middleburg Heights, about 15 minutes from the IX Center. and we had about 350, just over 350 people show up. I figured that was a pretty good success considering you had to drive 15 minutes to get there. 350 people showed up. Gave away a ton of stuff. But I really learned a lot from running it for the first time. Because I know you came this year, and one of the biggest takeaways I had from the first year I ran it was we didn't have a system in place where you got a prize for walking in the door. We got it where I gave away prizes all night. So you got a raffle ticket when you walked in. So I was on the microphone for 3.5 of the 4 hours giving away prizes because we had so much to give away. So we had seating for about 325 people, I think. Ended up never hitting max capacity. There's 350 people that showed up throughout the time, but it was a good event. It was full most of the time. A lot of people had a blast. But I knew with the success of that event and the growing social media, with social media getting so big, that next year in Chicago, with the hotels connected to the convention center, it was just a recipe for success. If we had it attached to the convention center and you could just walk right out of the show and right into trade night, we were going to need a bigger room. And ended up emailing, like, I started right away on this. So that's what a lot of people don't really realize is how much time and effort goes into planning this thing and just the details. Because when you have an event space that big, I mean, it was 11,000 square foot ballroom. I mean, a lot of planning, a lot of money, a lot of prizes, just a lot of marketing. So started right away, emailed a bunch of companies, emailed a bunch of venues, ended up finding a space, got a lot of companies involved, and made it what it was. We had just north, it was like 1,108 people, I think was the count that the watch had. But yeah, it was 4 hours, one day, 1,100 plus people. And at this point, we think it's safe to say that it has quickly become the biggest event at the biggest card show in the world. And it's all free, and it's all through social media. So it really took off. Wouldn't have guessed 4 years ago that it would have ever been this big, but it's really cool, and it's really special to be a part of. And my understanding is Jimmy will be more involved with it next year, with some flexibility in his job or some different things. So I'm expecting next year to be even bigger than it was this year for sure, especially if he's coming back to be involved.
So you guys are gonna start calling huge venues already, right?
Yeah, I mean, planning. I haven't started planning yet. I'll be honest. I haven't done a whole lot post national for it. But yeah, that planning process will start pretty soon. I mean, with all those venues there in Atlantic City, all those hotels, the casino hotels in Atlantic City right next to each other, again, within walking distance, we should have a pretty good sized crowd. So finding a venue big enough to hold, 1,500 people is probably going to be the goal. So yeah, got to find that space and then go from there. Space is the most important thing now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was actually at the Cleveland one last year. That one was a lot of fun. And we had like a group of like 90s basketball guys, and we were having a lot of fun. So we were excited to come back again this year. And dude, it was so impressive. Like I just looking at it, like I can't even imagine how much time you put into it. So, from me to you, I appreciate everything you put into it. I thought it was unbelievable. Like just the second you walked in the door, like everything was so organized, and like handing you the bag right away. And I like that you were able to. That's really smart for you to not have to hand out raffles. That was a good idea, so that you could at least enjoy the show for yourself.
Yeah.
But it's kind of building itself up to be this like alternate national thing, right? Like it's holding itself up against the national. It's so big.
Yeah.
So where one day you're just gonna like have your own mini national.
And that is, I assure you, that conversation has come up that one day trade night won't need to be at the national. That trade night will be its own 3-day partake where you come and we rent out a massive, not national big, but a ballroom that's people can set up and hang out. And the goal, and that's the thing, is the goal is not meant for there to be dealers set up buying and selling. That's what the show is for. This is meant for, I know you talked about it, and I had lots of people come up to me at the show, more than I ever thought would be like, hey, you know, this guy came to this show or to this trade night because he knew I was going to be there and I collected this. Like a guy collected like Steve or Tony Kukoc. Guy said that he knew I was going to be there and brought these Tony Kukocs he wanted to move. They were ones he was looking for years. I want it to be an event where collectors can come and trade and just walk around and mingle and not feel as like pressured to go up to a dealer who has $1,800 in their week for just the booth and like is like trying to nickel and dime you for every dollar. It's supposed to be more of like a friendly atmosphere where collectors shouldn't be concerned with like asking somebody if they want to trade to fear that they have money and setting up or so that's kind of the goal. But yeah, we've had conversations that one day it will be its own event where separate from the national, and you know, collectors can come in and just hang out. What that looks like when that happens, if it happens, I'm not sure, but that has crossed the conversation a couple times.
I was gonna say, if you get that big, just make sure you keep the spirit of the event the same, and it sounds like that's at the front of your mind. So I'm glad to hear that. Just because, like, I've said it in a bunch of my videos about national, where there's like you kind of hint at like there's like a pressure almost of like we have to make this deal, and like this person has to win the deal, and I have to lose. There's this kind of like weird feeling going back and forth. Whereas this is just
100%.
go have fun, look at cards. You don't have to buy if you don't want to. Like you don't have to trade. There's no rules, right? You just hang out.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that even myself, where you'll go up to a table and, you know, you'll be off on a $500 deal, $50, and you want to walk away, but it's like, I'll be honest, I felt the pressure to like complete a deal. It's like, this guy's going to be genuinely upset if I walk away from this deal for this. And just, that's not the spirit we're looking for. So
sure. Awesome, dude. Well, look forward to next year. Obviously it's going to be monstrous. All right, next question. Let's see. So jumping back to kind of like the card shop owner dealer side of things, how do you balance being a collector and a dealer? And like, are you still collecting cards for yourself, or are you more focused on the shop?
That is a wonderful question, and something I've actually had a lot of conversation around recently. So for the last, I mean, I grew up in Columbus, so Ohio State football is my pride and joy. I mean, you can see some of my jerseys behind me. I got into it really hard in 2016 and really went hard for like Braxton Miller. So this is one of my favorite cards, just logo patch out of 2 from Immaculate. I'm big into Ohio State stuff. But I'll be honest, I didn't realize, I kind of had expectations, but you don't really realize how capital intensive a card store is until you're in it, right? So like this week alone, just for example, Archives Baseball, Chronicles Baseball, Origins Football, and National Treasures Football came out, right? It was a $5,000+ order in one day, right? So it's hard to justify, just being honest and transparent, it's hard to justify spending, you know, $300 on an awesome Braxton Miller card when, you know, you have overhead and, you know, you got to buy lots of boxes for the shop. I mean, because boxes are what keep your door open. Singles, I've noticed singles are cool and they're fun. They're good items to display and to show off. They bring people in the door, but ultimately boxes are what keep you open. That's what a lot of the hobby likes right now. And that's what has sold the most for me. And it's really not close. So while I have picked up some really cool stuff over the years, Braxton Miller especially, that was one guy. I actually ended up working with his uncle at a previous corporate job. I was at Ohio State when they won the national title in 2014. So I really built this awesome Ohio State collection over the last couple of years. Just trying to show off some pieces as I go. Because I actually haven't been through this box since I moved recently. But it's been really hard to put things back. As stuff comes in, even like small stuff like this, I think is cool. Just a manufactured patch. But as stuff comes in that I think is cool, if I get it in a deal, I'll put it back to the side and maybe not be in as big of a rush to sell it. But like before, when a Braxton Miller 101 Ohio State auto hit eBay, there was a really good chance I bought it. Kind of like I watched one of your videos with Michael, CardCollector2. I'm a really big fan of him. And he talks a lot in there about flipping cards to fund the hobby or to fund your collection. And that's what I did for the longest time, right? Was just bought and sold stuff and flipped it and allowed me to build this massive Ohio State collection. Growing up in Columbus, being there when they won the national title, being an alum, I love Ohio State football. So that was what I did with a lot of my profits was I just bought Ohio State stuff. It's become a little more challenging now when, you have $5,000 orders a week for boxes of cards that you can't say no to those and yes to a Braxton Miller 101. As much as I would like a Braxton Miller 101, it's just a little tougher. I think a lot of what I focused on now, if I'm buying things to keep per se, is just more investment type pieces, things that I'm going to sell eventually. Because I talked the other day is I have I would imagine I have 5 figures tied up in Ohio State 101s out of 5s, like cool stuff from the last 3 years, it's cool and it's fun to look at. But the hard part about a lot of it is a lot of those guys will become irrelevant down the road. And some of them I could buy back for a fifth or a sixth or seventh of what I paid for them. So it's been a lot harder to really invest a lot of my money, my free capital into things that are going to be worth less down the road. I'll just pull out a couple more cool things to show you like the kind of stuff I'm talking about. But I'm not in a rush to sell this kind of stuff. This is stuff I'll keep for a while, as this is like my pride and joy. But like this is the kind of stuff I was buying. Like anytime it would come up, I mean, Braxton Miller, JT Barrett. I mean the bigger name Buckeyes. I mean I was buying like most of these are 101s out of 2s. Like just these like logo patches. I mean I was buying all of them. Every one I could find. It was very rare I lost. I put a lot of my free money when I was flipping stuff into building this collection. I love Ohio State. But yeah, it's just become a lot more challenging now. So the stuff I'll save now is like stuff like this. So Tatum is one guy that I've been on for since before the last national. I actually bought most of these at the national last year. Wish you would have done more this year, but with Kyrie, I think gone. I think it'll help. This is probably my favorite card, one of my favorite cards.
Nice.
But yeah, a lot of my free capital now goes into like things that I'll eventually sell, with the goal later to be able to buy this stuff, down the road. The Ohio State stuff that's cool down the road when I'm a little more. I have a little bit more free money to be able to tie up into PC cards rather than worry about like buying boxes and things like that. So
are you still trying to play the flip singles game? I know you're doing mostly boxes through the store, but at home, are you still going back to your roots and doing some of the single stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I try to buy a lot on Instagram too. I love being active on there. I really do. I don't have the time that I quite once had, but I do like to buy on there. And then if stuff comes in the shop, I'll definitely buy that kind of stuff too. Because I mean, I'll be honest, you'll never know what what's gonna walk through that door. I haven't got them back yet, but like, lady ended up coming in one day and was like, "Hey, my stepfather passed away and left me these cards, and I just don't know anything about them." And she had them in like a Longenberger basket, and half of them weren't in top loaders, half of them were dirty, and she genuinely knew nothing about them. This isn't the card. This is actually this is my favorite Jordan insert. Again, I'm not a big basketball guy, but this is my favorite one. I have one coming. It's actually back from PSA on its way now, but it's a 9. This is actually a 10. But she had one of these in a box, in a top loader, and she knew nothing about it. And I was like, "Do you have any idea what this is?" And she's like, she genuinely knew nothing. So I kind of showed her what they sold for and things like that. But when cool stuff walks in the shop, definitely will buy it. Like this actually came in the day I wasn't even supposed to be open. It was the day I agreed to buy the card store. Guy said he took a bus 2 hours to get to me, and pulled out a 1-row 800 count box with vintage cards in it, and said, I want to sell all of these. I don't have any use for them anymore. Take them off my hands. And it's not a great grade, but this was one of the cards in there.
What?
So it came back at 2. I actually thought it was going to get a 3, but it had the Chamberlain. It had both Robertsons. It had a Jerry West rookie. Had a couple early 60s Maris. It had a 59 Jim Brown. I wasn't even supposed to be open, and that kind of stuff, and that walked in. So I'll probably end up keeping this because it's like one of my first real purchases at the card store, and it's an all-time iconic card.
Like your dollar bill on the wall.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
and I still have that, but yeah, I think that's just a cool card. So if something walks in the door, I'll buy it there. I buy a lot on eBay, and then I still look at check out my cards and Instagram. But yeah, so I mean, still always looking for deals, things to buy and sell. It just yeah, it's fun. I enjoy getting mail days. I enjoy opening things. I still enjoy that a whole lot. It's a great part of the hobby.
Nice. All right, shifting gears a little bit. You mentioned Gary already, and I'm glad you did. I just wanted to get your take on, him entering the hobby and what you think it means for the hobby, and kind of like how you see that going forward.
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually saw you ask something similar in a different interview, and it made me think about it then too, because I think you asked Michael, and I think Gary's good for the hobby. I know he's a very, very polarizing topic in the hobby right now. It seems like you either really like him or you really don't like him. You're not really in between. But I seem to lie in the in between on this. Like I said, I'm a fan of Gary as a person. I genuinely think he's a good person. I saw some people on Instagram talk a lot about like how Gary at the National in his like Q&A mentioned buying Kevin McHale. So not sure where that comes from or the need for that. But yeah, I mean, he's going to bring a lot more attention to a big business. Cards are huge. The hobby's never been as hot as it is right now. And it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. And more attention on it doesn't seem to be a bad thing. I think the attention the hobby has got has also been a good thing to shed light on some of the shady people in the business. I mean, some of the trimming scandals, some of the things like that. So I don't think all the extra attention is bad. I hope Gary's intentions are good. I don't want to say that I'm naive and say that they couldn't be anything like that. He couldn't be saying I'm buying De'Aaron Fox or I'm buying Luka or I'm buying Giannis to jack those prices of those cards up and then sell them later. I don't think that's the intention. I could see how somebody would think that. But I think the attention that he does bring to the hobby, he makes a good point when he talks about like the sneaker game, when he talks about like supply and demand. The supply and demand the supply specifically of sneakers isn't quite there. You can't go out and buy, 100 million pairs of this card or of this shoe. They only make X amount of quantity of them. So when those are gone, but like with Jordans, there's 50 different Jordan autos, 100 different Jordan autos, right? Like there's a lot more avenues to flip. So yeah, I think it's good. I like him being in it. I was excited to meet him. I'm a fan. But again, I can really see both sides of it.
For sure. Any other takes around maybe like just the future of the hobby in general, maybe more as it pertains to you and your store, and like, how do you see things going for you long term?
Yeah, that's a question I talk actually a lot about at my job now, at this shop now. Like specifically, a couple parts of this. In the next year, I think the hobby will be on all like crazy hot. We talk a lot now about how the hobby is rapidly growing. Stuff continues to go up. But with how hot the hobby is now, I think the Zion basketball class especially, I mean, you're talking about the hottest the card market has ever been, with one of the best basketball classes in recent memory, probably since LeBron, with a guy that's as hyped. There's not been a player hyped coming out of college since LeBron. And LeBron obviously didn't go to college. But I haven't seen anyone as hyped as LeBron, or as Zion is now. Luka was hot, but wasn't as hot. Ben Simmons was hot, didn't have autos, so that kind of hurt. Lonzo Ball was hot. But with the way the market is now, and then Zion and the mania that he's going to produce, and then the rest of the class with, Morant and Barrett, and then even the sleeper guys. I mean, Bull seems to sell for me. Carson Edwards. I mean, it's a deep class. So with basketball especially, I think the basketball market for the next year is just going to be a different level. I really, really, really hope that it's not mass produced. That definitely scares me. I mean, if you look at pop reports with PSA, you can learn very quickly that things are being produced at alarming rates. With Giannis Prism Silvers to Jason Tatum Prism Silvers to Luka Doncic Prism Silvers. If you look at the pop report for those, you can see that there's a lot more of one than the other. And, it seems like that there's a trend that we're going to maximize, on the opportunity. And I can't say I blame them. I just hope it's that I think it would make it more interesting and create more value in the cards if Zion stuff was a little bit harder to hit. And not as, one per pack type deal. But yeah, I'll be curious to see where the hobby goes. I think it's at a great pace. I love everything I'm seeing now, with exposing some of the bad in it and bringing new people into it. So I love it. I love, like I said, being a card shop owner now. I don't seem to be concerned, but I've also never lived through a economic crisis or a bubble bursting or things like that. So I would be curious to see if that happened, what that looked like, because first thing that typically happens when the economy crashes is, extra income goes away, right? For hobbies, and this is a hobby to a lot of people. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm optimistic right now. So I guess we'll see, but I think the next year especially has a really, really good potential.
For sure. Well, I tend to agree, and hopefully we keep this thing going. I mean, it's just a ton of fun right now, obviously, and social media is taking out like every like niche, every aspect of the hobby is just going crazy, and it's a lot of fun to watch. So I don't have anything else. I just wanted to say, keep doing what you're doing, man. I love the positivity. I love the energy that you have, and obviously the trade night's amazing. So look forward to seeing more from you in the future. And thanks for hanging out and doing this interview.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I just wanted to get on here and say this before you close this. I think I was looking at your channel earlier, and I'm really going to promote this hardcore, your channel. I learned a lot from a lot of the videos you posted, and I really think that your channel is one of, if not the more undervalued social media accounts. It's in terms of, especially of YouTube, the knowledge I was able to obtain in 2 hours, and I've been in this hobby a while, and I feel like I know a decent amount, but the things I was able to learn in 2.5 hours of just purging interviews and things like that, I think you're doing great work, and not afraid to talk to anybody and ask the tough questions, and the things you show. It's like I watched the interview with Nat, and those kind of cards. It's really, really cool. So I really appreciate you bringing me on this, because I think what you're doing is awesome, and I really just wanted to say that before I got off here.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Absolutely. That means a lot coming from you, so really appreciate it. Well, hope we can get you back on another time and do it again.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Talk to you later.
Hey, Josh.